Hare Krishna. Welcome, dear devotees. Thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful Bond of Love series. It's my great honor and fortune to welcome our guest, Jagarini Devi. Hare Krishna, Jagarini Prabhu. Please
Hare
accept
Krishna.
this.
Please accept my obeisances, O glories to Srila Prabhupada.
It's so wonderful to see you and so wonderful to have you here on our Vaishnavi Ministry platform, talking about Srila Prabhupada and the wonderful book, The Bond of Love. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be here.
Thank you for inviting me. My honor.
Aw, thank you. So many of you already know Jagarini Prabhu, but I just want to share a few things about her. Jagarini Prabhu, she joined the Hare Krishna movement, or she was introduced to the Hare Krishna movement in 1973. Wow, that's a long time ago, almost 5 decades, right?
Yeah, we were No, I've been initiated 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 1973 is when you got initiated.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we came just a few months earlier. We got initiated pretty quick.
Yeah.
But
That
I
is
probably
wonderful.
got introduced in 72. It was really from 1972 that we started, reading Prabhupada's books or at least Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, fantastic. And she has done all kinds of services, right from cooking for the deities, sewing for the deities, deity worship, to managing fundraising campaigns, to editing books, to child protection office, to being the deputy for the GBC. I mean, such a wide variety of services that you have done in these 50 years of. We're so grateful and we're so honored to have you here. Please tell us a little bit about, just to start this interview and for others to get to know you a bit more. Tell us a little bit about what it was like being introduced to Krishna consciousness in the 70s.
Well, it was an interesting time in the United States. The Vietnam War, a lot of civil rights marches, Martin Luther King, all that. So we were coming of age, or I was coming of age, right at the time when there were a lot of causes for young adults to get involved in. And our parents, they kind of, after World War II, the United States was kind of, everybody wanted a white picket fence, a house with a white picket fence, and a car. It was kind of washing machines were coming into fashion, and all these conveniences, and so it was kind of a time of prosperity in the United States after the war, in the 50s. In the 60s, it was a little different. We grew up at a time when, like I said, there was the Vietnam War. There were a lot of causes. There were a lot of things that we felt we had to change. So we became a little bit more aware. We had it easy. We didn't have to work real hard for, for food or anything like that. We were pretty spoiled. My generation was spoiled, except for when it came to the draft. And the boys were having to go to war at 18 years old. And that gave us pause. And the music was centered around it. All the music that we listened to was on the news every day. And racism became a very big deal. So we were kind of emerging as young adults in a world we were being thoughtful. We were kind of being thoughtful. And personally, myself, I was raised also Catholic. And that was the foundation in my family. We weren't just Sunday Catholics. It was, it was something that my family was serious about. My father had two sisters that were sisters. They were nuns.
Mm.
And, so we grew up learning about the saints and how they behaved, and learning about all the things Jesus taught, and learning about bhakti, basically. I mean, so when I became a certain age and I had questions about that, I remember going to my aunts and they would say, don't ask so many questions, just have faith in God, And right at the same time, Eastern philosophy started to bloom. So we had little books, Be Here Now, Bob Ramdas was a big thing. And so we started like experimenting with different nuggets, nuggets of India's wisdom, little nuggets of wisdom. So we were apparently, unbeknownst to us, being prepared by Krishna for Srila Prabhupada. I remember Nirkula and I and a couple of other friends, we were still very young then. It was because it was Prabhupada first arriving in New York. We
Mm-hmm.
were watching a football game
Ah.
at a friend's house, and they broke the game up to announce the Swami's arrival. And we were spellbound. We just were, wow, look at him. His feet aren't touching the ground. Wow, he's really special. We were already thinking in terms of, or intrigued by Eastern wisdom. And then we saw Prabhupada on TV. We were still young, and that was kind of that came that went. We didn't think much about it.
Mm.
And then until I happened upon devotees and got a Bhagavad Gita and read the Bhagavad Gita, it answered all those questions that I was asking my aunts and that they told me not to ask.
Wow. What is it about Srila Prabhupada that, you decided to dedicate your life and still are continuing to dedicate your life? 50 years strong. What
Well,
is it? What's something that really, really like blew you off your feet? Said this is it.
his books. I mean, I didn't meet Srila Prabhupada right away. It
Mm.
was about a month in or so. We joined. We I read the Bhagavad Gita. I met Satsvarup Maharaj. He
Mm.
was traveling with Bhaktigana. At the time, his name was Bhakti John. So it was Bhakti Tirtha Swami was Bhakti John. He was traveling with Satsvarup Maharaj. And we would go see him. We were living in a cabin in the mountains in Santa Cruz, no running water, no electricity. And I was already married. I already had a baby, an infant. And Maharaj put on a program at a devotee's house in Santa Cruz in Boulder Creek, I believe it was. And we'd go in the evening and he'd do a little artik and he was explaining philosophy to us. He even took us one day, we met him downtown Santa Cruz to do a harinam. So we were as he was as impressed actually as we were, because it wasn't just, it was myself, Nirkula, our then husbands. So there were four of us that were very interested in this. In fact, I think at that time it was Patty and Willie too. So there were six of us. Um, they didn't. They decided not to join when he took us to Los Angeles. But so he had an audience of hippies that were very, very serious about what he was saying, really listening to what he had to say. And he told us he would just come to our house and teach us how to have an altar, worship, offer our food. And instead, when he saw how we were living, he called Karandar and asked, do you have an apartment for them? And he drove us to LA. So about a month later, I met Srila Prabhupada. And um, Srila Prabhupada, boy, he personified so many things. When you're in his presence, first of all, he was beautiful to watch. He was graceful. He was wise and regal. And we would we were blessed with his classes every morning. And in the temple room every morning, which, by the way, the Fate Studios in Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
temple right now, that little room with Fate Studios,
Right, right.
or the Fate Museum, that was the temple room at the time.
Oh.
So it's a smaller room, and it had a back door that was towards the garden area, and they would keep the back door open so there were breezes always coming through, and there was always this beautiful fragrance in the temple room. It was heavenly. It was kind of otherworldly in there, and there weren't many devotees in the morning, and we would sit and we would watch Srila Prabhupada, and he just, and surprisingly, we understood, or I understood him, even with his very, very strong accent. I feel that Krishna just made so many wonderful magical arrangements for us. And, it started becoming, LA was a very, very big center at time. In fact, it was the world's headquarters at the time. It was
Mm-hmm.
pre-Mayapur, pre-Vrindavan. So, so we had a lot of crowds and a lot of visiting, especially when Prabhupada would come. There'd be big crowds coming. And so if you weren't, a quote unquote important devotee at the time, you didn't really get a lot of personal association with Srila Prabhupada. So I didn't get much personal association with Prabhupada, but I did attend his classes every day, and just that, it was just, it felt safe, and um, at the same time it was a spiritual safety. It wasn't a mundane safety. It was kind of, wow, this window opened, window into the spiritual world. um, One thing that I found interesting, that I remember, that Prabhupada would talk a lot about impersonalism.
Uh-huh.
Almost every class he would talk about impersonalism to us. And
Was
I
it
was,
because it was rampant at that point of time? Was
well,
that
no, I was wondering what, I was thinking when he would talk about, impersonalism, and Krishna's personal, and the devotees of Krishna's devotees are, personal, and he would explain all those different aspects of personalism versus impersonalism a lot. And I remember thinking, we're devotees, we're not impersonalists. Why is Srila Prabhupada talking so much about this? But, in hindsight, the devotees treated each other very impersonally back
hmm.
then. And I believe that he was trying to have us understand that we should, connect with each other, because everybody was so, we all loved Prabhupada. Everybody's working hard, but devotees were not understanding of each other or kind in general. In general, you'd find your friends, but in general, it was a bit like an army.
Everyone was young and service oriented,
Young, yeah,
goal oriented, and
yep. And there were no adults. I mean, we were all teenagers. I think the oldest devotee around was in her 20s. I think Kamadaki was the oldest devotee at the
Mhm.
temple at the time. She wasn't
you know
that much.
you brought up such a beautiful point of personal association, um and that happens when your focus becomes more goal oriented, and success and numbers and all of that. Sometimes you just slack on seeing the other person as not just a machine or
Right, right.
service to get the job done, but actually a living entity can deeply in love with Krishna and connected to Krishna. How did you see Srila Prabhupada when how was his dealings with his disciples and
What
his
little I saw directly, very kind, always very kind, and very concerned. Um, it's more about stories, than actually seeing him, because you know how the schedule was, right? The schedule would see him in the morning. He'd go on a morning walk. And he'd come back for greeting. He'd go on a morning walk, and sometimes we'd run out to try and see him leaving, right? And then he'd come back, and there'd be Guru Puja, and that was fun because he was. So, what's the next question?
Well, you were talking about Srila Prabhupada and how, you mentioned something about Prabhupada giving out distributing cookies. And
Yeah, I don't know if everybody heard that, but I had kids, and the brahmacharinis used to borrow them so they could get close and get a cookie from Prabhupada. Yeah, by 1977, I had three little ones. I was
Mhm.
just 24 years old, and anytime Prabhupada came, they would, different friends would, can I bring him up? Can I bring him up? And I don't know if anyone heard because I kept on speaking, but this one time that Prabhupada was giving a cookie to my son, I had him in my arms, and he grabbed the cookie with his left hand, and me being, wanting to be Paka, um, I took his little left hand and pulled it away from the cookie, and I took his right hand and put it on the cookie, and Prabhupada looked at me and smiled and nodded. It was sweet.
Oh my God.
I'll tell you a couple more little Prabhupada snippets that I love. And this was under the question you'd given me about favorite memories of Prabhupada. Um, One morning in LA, we went to class as usual. Prabhupada was there. And the devotees in Los Angeles had just purchased the house on the same side of the street as the temple. After the two, if you're looking at the Los Angeles temple facing it, to the left there are two houses, and to the left of those two houses is another apartment building. The devotees had just purchased that apartment building. The only apartment that was vacant in that building was the 2-bedroom downstairs. It was the first vacancy in that apartment. So they painted it, fixed it up, and they asked us if we wanted to move in. Us meaning the two families, mine and Nirkula's. And
Hmm.
we were lucky because there was a waiting list, but nobody wanted to share except we did. We'd been sharing up until that point anyway. So we were happy to share an apartment together. So we were lucky. We moved into that apartment, and when Prabhupada arrived, they wanted to show him the new building and the apartment, and they gave us no warning. So it was I had just left Guru Puja, and I was walking down the street towards the house, and a devotee ran after me and said, "Prabhupada's on his way to your house." Yeah. So, I mean, picture this. I was at the whole morning program, right? I got up, went to Mangal Archik and the whole morning program, went to Guru Puja. Now I'm
And you
walking,
had two kids.
Prabhupada's on his way to your house. So I ran into the house, and I remember there was dishes in the sink because there was a clog. The sink had gotten clogged or something. So I just grabbed those dishes. I ran outside. I brought them to the back of the building or something, put them down, came in, cleaned the sink up, and then Prabhupada was at the door. And we offered him something nice to drink. And the devotees, they took him into every room of the apartment. They opened every closet. They opened even the medicine cabinets. They wanted to show him. So look, Srila Prabhupada, look, Srila Prabhupada, look, Srila Prabhupada. And he turned to me and he said, "Very nice, very clean." So that was pretty special.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
That must have been a trip.
that was that was a trip, real trip.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And you had
Yeah.
two kids at that time?
No, I only had one at that time. That was right away. That was pretty soon after we, got to LA.
Hmm.
I got first initiation. Nirkula informed me this past year that it was actually Nrsmha Caturdasi. We didn't know because we didn't celebrate that at the time. So Nrsmha Caturdasi, 1973, May 15th it was, I believe, on that year. We got first initiation. And then I got second from Prabhupada on Christmas, December 25th.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really something too.
So that'll be that'll be 50 years for you now.
Yeah, yeah, 50 years of Gayatri Mantra.
Wow.
I mean, I was a child, really. I was 19 years old. I think maybe I was 20 by then, just 20. Um, and I was real, we, I didn't have a deep understanding of who Srila Prabhupada was. I mean, we really appreciated him and we really thought he was very special. But, when you're that young and you're busy with kids and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't as deep as I wish. Like if it were today, I probably would have spoken to him more. I was very nervous.
Mm.
Shruti called me up to his room in LA, and that staircase seemed endless. Walking up the staircase, come on, and sat with Srila Prabhupada, and yeah, very sweet.
Wow.
We would see him. He would sit. Srila Prabhupada would sit at his desk in his quarters in Los Angeles upstairs, and the back of his head would show in the window. We would
Mm.
all do our laundry at the laundromat through the alleyway.
Hmm.
We'd walk past, we'd walk down the alleyway and we'd look up and see Prabhupada's head, and it was just so nice knowing he was there, having him there.
Wow. You mentioned something about Prabhupada acknowledging the house being clean and just his kindness. Um, you
He
mentioned that
noticed
even
everything.
he did. He
I
did.
remember him crossing the street. I think one of the devotees, maybe it was Mama Heaney, somebody told me that Prabhupada went across the street to talk to one of the devotees. It was one of the children, to tell the mom put neck beads on her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So he told the mom to put neck beads on the child.
yeah, yeah. So he was with us. He cared for us, and he guided us. And another memory. This is something we don't talk about much. Prabhupada. I mean, we read that devotional service should be joyfully performed. Srila Prabhupada really wanted us to be happy. He wanted us to have a good time. Um, I remember that all of us were told at one point, and it was probably 73 in that year, 74, and we were told Prabhupada wants all the ladies to wear their ankle bells. And if you wear your
Hmm.
ankle bells, he'll dance when you come to the
He'll
temple.
dance?
He'll dance. Yeah, Prabhupada will dance in the temple. So he wanted us. He just wanted us to be. He loved us being joyful, happy. He loved seeing us like that. And he probably. I mean, we were teenagers and young adults, so you can imagine. Like if you walked into a room right now full of teenagers and young adults, you'd want to see them, engaged, having a nice time. It's He was fatherly.
Hmm.
He really cared.
That is so wonderful that you mentioned something like this because I remember me joining the temple as a teenager and I was told not to wear ankle belts because it's distracting.
See, a lot. I'll tell you, a lot of that stuff. A lot of that stuff. I was talking to Dritti's here visiting me, and we were talking about, just how Prabhupada wanted us to be happy. He didn't want us to be drudging, like austere and you know the material world is a terrible place, and I mean, we do know that we have the knowledge that
That's our foundation.
materialistic life is not, um, it's temporary and it's full of misery, yes, but he didn't want us to be full of misery. And if you think about the world he gave us, the think about our senses, right? Think about the smells in Krishna consciousness, the tastes in Krishna consciousness, the what we do to touch our hands, the service we can perform for addressing the deities. And I mean, he gave us a very um, enjoyable life, a transcendentally beautiful life, and he wanted us to be happy in that life.
Our very
And
slogan says, chant Hare Krishna and be happy.
yes, yes.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for reinforcing. You know, I was just on Prabhupada's disappearance day. I always reflect on this on his disappearance day because I think what does really disappearance mean to me? Because when
Mm,
I was born or when I was introduced to Krishna consciousness,
mm,
Prabhupada had already left the planet. So his
mm,
disappearance and his appearance are synonymous. As
mm.
soon as he appeared, he disappeared physically. But
Right.
it's hearing from devotees, of course, his Bhaktivedanta purports, but hearing from devotees about their interactions, their association with Srila Prabhupada, their these sweet memories you had about Srila Prabhupada coming to your apartment and having to tidy it up, and about him asking his mother to put on neck beads. It just brings the person Srila Prabhupada alive for me. And I'm sure that's for many second generation devotees that who are seeing Prabhupada through your eyes. So it's really, really special. And that's why I love these series because it just gives us a very different perspective of Srila Prabhupada. And I've noticed that with especially the Bond of Love. I've heard Prabhupada memories and it's so beautiful. But I really found the Vaishnavis have a very different take about. When I heard uh, the devotees talk about Srila Prabhupada, they were like, oh, Prabhupada did this, and Prabhupada did that, and Prabhupada got up and he chastised the scientist. And when I speak to the Vaishnavis, it's more about how they felt in Srila Prabhupada's presence. It was just serene, it was just alive, he was just caring, it was fatherly, all of these words. And it just gives me this whole wonderful person that Srila Prabhupada was, and
Mm.
he was he was a he was a nurturer. He was a
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, he was juggling so many balls. He had his sannyasis. He was tougher on them, I've heard. But I think that a lot of if you read the letters, like I remember we had this book of letters. I haven't looked at it in a while, and now everything's in storage until we get our things. But I remember reading, Prabhupada many times had to keep correcting the devotee men for you know their kind of they wanted the women to be gone. They wanted the women to have a different to go away. Why should we have to hear them in the morning? Why should we have to see it? You know, I get it. They were young men and they didn't want to be around the anything that reminded them of their austerity, right? But at the same time, so Prabhupada was juggling, teaching us how to behave and trying to grow a movement and sleeping very little, translating these amazing books. I mean, you read one purport and you have to unpack every single sentence pretty much. They're just so filled with spiritual wisdom and you know this gift that he gave us that we've just I don't know. I think it takes a lot of years to understand that gift. I
yeah.
I, I read recently. I had to give a class, so I had to brush up on a little bit of the Lilamrita and some pastimes from the past. Prabhupada, I gave this little class at the IHE, and I read. It was a realization. It was in the Prabhupada Nectar book that also Satsvit Maharaj wrote.
Hmm.
Giriraj Swami, he said that he had realized that just like Krishna arranged for Arjuna to be the hero of the Kurukshetra war, that, Krishna didn't need Arjuna. He didn't need anybody to take care of that. He didn't need that whole thing to play out the way it did. Krishna could have handled it himself quite easily. But Krishna wants his devotee to be glorious. So he makes the arrangement so that his devotees can be glorious. And similarly, he did that for Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada's um, devotion, his love for Krishna and his Guru Maharaj, really, it Krishna reciprocates. He is watching over ISKCON for Srila Prabhupada. I mean, I've been to temples that it defies logic that they're still running.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but I can name a couple. I won't name them. It just defies logic that they can still be going on because so many things have happened, financial things, not necessarily really, really bad things, but just
A lot of
things,
challenges.
leaving, and yet somehow or other, someone comes through and pays a bill or something. It's this Krishna magic, which that's what Shama Sundar would call it, Krishna magic. But it's actually Krishna's reciprocating with Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada, he invited us into that. Um,
There's so many things we all are so grateful to Srila Prabhupada for. You know, is there anything in particular that really resonates with your heart and you feel that, if it wasn't for Srila Prabhupada?
well, I mean, where do you start? I mean, my whole life. Uh, I would say the family of devotees.
The
That's
association.
that's a big one. Yeah, my friends, my bonds with my god sisters. Um, I think that it's. I mean, humans need love. A human baby will die if they don't have it, if they're not held. A lot of times, and we read these stories about these children that are born without parents, and the nurses have to take care of them, have to hold them and nurture them a little bit because they won't survive.
Right.
And we're creatures that we need that. We need to feel love. So this family that Srila Prabhupada gave us provides that. Um, I think it's one of the most important things that we could do is nurture relationships with devotees. Safe. I don't mean just like don't have any privacy. I understand there are many devotees that value their privacy, and I agree with that because not every devotee is of like mind, right? But I
Right.
think that you should find devotees of like mind and devotees you can trust and share with and nurture your relationships with because you need that, and it keeps us strong in Krishna consciousness. You don't feel like going to the temple, or you don't feel like whatever the service you have, and you just picture in your mind that the devotees they're doing this. You know what's going on without you, and it pulls you in. It's just this beautiful life that Prabhupada gave us. Besides the prasadam and like I mentioned before, the incense that's been offered, the beautiful flowers. When did we ever see flowers except at a funeral? You know,
Right.
we
Yeah, isn't it? Just imagine that amazing.
yeah.
Our
I know.
lifestyle
Can you
has
imagine life
been,
without flowers? Yeah,
wow.
maybe once a year. I remember my father, he never wanted, my father was so frugal. He was just so,
Well,
and
he
he
was
just,
raised in the depression.
yeah. And he wouldn't buy my mom flowers. And when you know, I would send her flowers and he'd say, "Why are you wasting your money? They just die anyway." And I was just like, "No, no, they're beautiful. She likes them, It's okay." Anyway, but
That is amazing. The
yeah.
lifestyle that Srila Prabhupada gave us with um, everything that we have and all the opulence, just offer it to
Hmm,
Krishna.
absolutely.
And you can do more and indulge in the best flowers and just offer it all to Krishna.
Yeah.
And Krishna very mercifully, he just lets us serve him in that way.
Hmm.
That is such a fantastic point that you made. I was making the same point earlier that for me, having a relationship with Srila Prabhupada is through your words, your eyes, your how you saw Srila Prabhupada. Do you think it's important for the next generation and for the generations to come to continue to strive to have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, it's got to be one of the most important things. Well, he's the founder acharya of our movement, um, of ISKCON, and as I said earlier, ISKCON is under the care of Krishna, who's definitely going to keep it successful for Srila Prabhupada. That's a reciprocation that's going on. So anybody that comes and joins is part of that. It's a very beautiful transcendental relationship that's going on. And Srila Prabhupada, I have so many god brothers and now god sisters, right? They have disciples that are, and they're guiding them so nicely. So many of them are so advanced and um, so much knowledge and so much enthusiasm in serving Prabhupada's movement. But, and I say this, but where does 16 rounds come from? Where does the formula come from? Where does the knowledge come from? Where do the steps come from? It comes from Prabhupada. Prabhupada gave us the formula. He gave us the recipes. He gave us the house, right? That we all could serve in. And wherever you are in Krishna consciousness, you help someone else along,
Hmm.
right? That's part of what we do. But if you don't develop your relationship with Srila Prabhupada, you'll miss out. You'll lose out. There's something very, very deep and very, very special and very, very transcendental about developing a relationship with Srila Prabhupada. And I know a few younger devotees that are really attached to Srila Prabhupada. They really feel that. And they tell me what how it increases their joy
Hmm.
and their understanding, their mature understanding. I think you need to develop a relationship with Prabhupada to mature properly in Krishna consciousness. I think
So
it's important.
beautifully, yeah, so beautifully put. Yeah, oftentimes I think Prabhupada is the string that's holding everything in place.
Absolutely, it's the glue. He's
He
the
is.
he's the glue that's keeping. And why not? The grandfather is more merciful than the father, right? So you know,
Right, right. Absolutely. Yeah, we have comments from a couple of devotees saying Srila Prabhupada is so merciful even today. And absolutely, he is. He is. Um, you touched upon so many wonderful points in terms of the personal aspect of Srila Prabhupada, uh, how important it is actually to develop a relationship with Srila Prabhupada. and the struggles through that period of time when you joined the movement. How do you see us today? How can we make an effort to continue to serve with the same dedication that you did when Srila Prabhupada was personally present on this planet? What can we do to strive to have that same enthusiasm that all of y'all had? I mean, just imagine what devotees achieved at that point of time. Um, of course, because they were all connected because of Srila Prabhupada in the center.
Well, that's
That
another good reason to develop your relationship with Srila Prabhupada, because we're all doing this for him. We're all doing this for him. Um, he's going to introduce us to Radharani. He's going to open that door for, and even the grand disciples. Yes, your Guru Maharaj, but your Guru Maharaj is coming in on Prabhupada's introduction, right? So Grandpa's going to open that door, and you're going to walk through it to meet Krishna, to meet Radha and Krishna. So I think it's you. How to stay enthusiastic. That's the key. How to stay enthusiastic, and to not listen to the mind when it tells you, too tired, to this, to that, too hard, too difficult. I think that giving in to that kind of negativity will slow anyone down in spiritual life. That when you push yourself, I'm not saying you should over endeavor. Probably didn't want that, but a challenge is always good. And I think that if you push yourself a little more than you think you comfortably can, then Krishna really reciprocates. And when you feel that reciprocation, which is really transcendental, it's you can't explain it. You just know you're pleasing Krishna. You know you're pleasing Srila Prabhupada. You can feel it, and when you feel that gives you more incentive to stick with it.
beautiful.
I think that devotees need to be very, very kind to each other, and not, don't sweat the small stuff. Don't pick on each other. Everybody's got their foibles. That's part of having a material body. And if you just notice if you notice what's good about each other, that's how you fan the spark. Fanning the spark means like you do with your child, right? When your child takes a few steps and he falls down, you don't like, oh, you fell down. You're like, yeah, you walked, And if we can be that way with each other and not be picking on each other and create this environment, a loving environment, that helps a lot. Because, typically service is done at the temple with other devotees. And if that's a really pleasant, loving environment, you're going to want to be there. You're going to miss it if you can't be there. You'll become attached to it, attached to serving, attached to the devotees. So,
Mhm.
that's all I can think of for now.
That's beautiful, and that's so true. You were mentioning about Srila Prabhupada and his relationship with, you mentioned something about talking about impersonalists, and how was he with dealing with non-devotees or anything that you observed? Um,
Okay, there's a couple of memories that I read. One was Kaushalya's, and they were in India. Prabhupada was there with his disciples, and I don't know who it was. She didn't say in this memory who it was, but she was a woman that was that really liked the devotees and invited them to her house for prasadam. She wanted to do that for the devotees. And Prabhupada accepted the invitation. And when they went there, the devotees noticed she had been cooking with onions. In the prasad, there was onions. So one of the devotees, went up to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, there's onions in them. Prabhupada said, shh, just eat. Don't say anything, just eat. So he didn't want to hurt her feelings, And that was one instance. There was another instance similar. I like looking up these memories because, let's see, where is that one in that? Kashalya.
We had some really sweet memories.
Yeah, Shamasundar with the cigarettes. We all know that memory. When Shamasundar was carving Lord Jagannath, right? he put his pack of cigarettes. He was a smoker, and he was carving the deities, and he had put his cigarettes on I think it was on Balaram's head. And Prabhupada came over and he knocked the cigarettes off the deity with his cane, and he said, "You smoke one less every day. You shouldn't be doing that. Don't smoke anymore. Smoke one cigarette less every day, and then you'll stop." And he didn't get angry. He didn't, Prabhupada. He guided everybody from where they were, and it's important for us, very important for us, to read his books, to study his books, to know deeply the philosophy, to develop that relationship with Prabhupada so we mature. And in that way, we'll have the ability to make the right time, place, and circumstance decisions. It takes maturity. It's not that, you say, oh, it's okay to eat onions. That's not it at all. But how do you know when to say what's okay, what's not okay? Be sensitive to it in such a way that you're actually helping everyone progress, right? I heard a really nice class in Houston. I went to the meetings that were just in Houston. Really nice class by Radhika Raman. He talked about Narada Muni and how Narada Muni was the example of a Vaishnava preaching, that he, in the pastime with Murari, that first of all, he saw the animals. He's on the forest path. It's the jungle. It's India jungle, and he's on the path, and he sees these animals that are half killed, and he felt compassion that he needed to seek out the person that was doing these things to help. And he went off the path to find him. And Radhika Raman was saying, have you ever gone off the path? Have you ever seen the jungles in India? Do you know what it would be like to go off a path and just walk through the jungle? The only people out there are hunters. And if they see anything stirring, they're going to shoot, bows and arrows, whatever, thinking it's an animal. So basically, Narada Muni was willing to risk. He put himself in danger. He sacrificed to find Murari. And he gets to his house. He knocks on the door, and and Murari, it's obvious Narada Muni's a saintly person, and he's like, whoa, what are you doing here? I have nothing. What can I do for you? I have some animal skins. Why are you here? And Narada Muni said, I'm here to ask you something. Please, I want you to kill the animals fully. Now, okay, in today's world, you could see that being put all over the internet, Maharaj tells so-and-so to kill animals, right? It would
Fully.
be like a sound bite all over the place, just out of
Right.
context, right?
Right.
But Narada Muni, in his preaching to Murari, the way the conversation is going, he doesn't even tell Magari anything until Magari asks for it. So Magari's saying, "What can I do? How can I help? What should I do?" And each time he gives him a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more until he says, "Break your bow." And
Right.
then he says, "Well, how will I feed my family? How can I do this?" And he says, "I'll feed you." And Narada Muni personally brings him food every day. And Narada Muni had plenty of people that he could send there, but he personally took care of it. He's nurturing him. So he was just making this beautiful point about the how a Vaishnava preaches. How that's how Prabhupada preached to us, and
Right.
that's how we need to
He
continue.
just fanned the spark and
Fan the spark.
didn't see the little mistakes. And like you said, don't sweat the small things.
Yeah.
They will disappear. Right. And yeah, I've heard several such pastimes. He's like, Prabhupada just said, don't let a cigarette come in between you and Krishna.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So just something like that, showing somebody the larger perspective than belittling them, uh,
Mm-hmm.
can change the whole perspective of looking at Krishna consciousness. So some really wonderful points that you made is uh, the maturity with which Srila Prabhupada was preaching to teenage teenagers that were addicted to intoxication, to illicit sex, to so many things that we think are forbidden, um, and the compassion that he had really highlighted in your talk today. We're really so grateful that I don't know how that 1 hour mark actually passed. We're extremely grateful for you to come join us today and share these wonderful memories of Srila Prabhupada. Like I mentioned before, this is how we see Srila Prabhupada, through your eyes and through your words. Um, any last thoughts that you have before we sign off for today?
Mm. No, just gratitude. I was thinking on Prabhupada's disappearance day how grateful I am for just having met the devotees, and I mean being in the right, that little story that Prabhupada told about the tortoise. There's a tortoise on the ocean, and there's a log on the ocean, and they're just in different parts of the ocean. There's just this log floating, and a little tortoise is floating, and the tortoise has to come up for air every so often, and just as the little tortoise comes up for air, it goes right through a knot in the log. And Prabhupada said that that's the chances of meeting a pure devotee in your lifetime. So um, it
We're
amazes
all
me.
so fortunate.
Yeah, yeah. It's a wonderful family we have. So keep up the good work. You're doing so much nice service. It's so nice being here with you, even virtually. Come visit me in Alachua.
I absolutely will. I also wanted to bring on board Rukmini Priya, who is actually heading the Bond of Love series. She's working a lot behind the scenes trying to schedule. So thank you so much, Rukmini Priya,
Thank
for
you.
all your services. And Thomas, thank you so much, Jagarini Prabhu. I mean, for your lifetime of service. I mean, 5 decades.
Please bless me to continue.
I'm not even 5 decades old. So
Oh,
that's how long you've been serving Srila Prabhupada. And
mm.
thank you for being here.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, everyone. And we apologize for that little bit of, uh, few minutes of delay that we had some
Mm.
technical difficulties.
Yeah,
But
sorry about that.
thank you so much, everyone. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki. Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.